We're going to take the North and never give it back.
So that's a good pick. You get the corner. I got to go bold, right? I got to go bold for this.
Yeah, she's got some nice.
Welcome back to the Unbearable Sports Podcast. I'm your host, Brad Barron. Make sure to like and subscribe if you haven't already. We are live breaking down day 2 of the Chicago Bears free agent saga. Hope everybody is doing well. Looks like Joe's out there. Looks like Cliff's out there as well. We had so much fun yesterday. I decided let's do it again and let's recap everything. We have Gerald Everett signing. We have Jonathan Owens signing. We also want to talk about the cap update because, Ryan Poles decided to go a little bit soft with some of this stuff, kind of keeping it casual as he normally does. So that's why today we are going to be breaking down what that might mean and also what might he be trying to plan out there? Because I know a lot of us Bears fans are a little bit like, okay, man, what's going on? Also, QB saga, we have to cover it. It's in my contract now. We have to talk about the latest with what is happening at the quarterback position. And last but not least, are we going to sign anybody else? Who's still out there on the open market? We break it all down. What is going on? Also, yeah, I see Cliff asking there already. What about Justin Fields? Why didn't we trade him? We'll be breaking that down. Also, what's going on? Photography Anonymous, Bear down, and Fabian, Bear down as well. So let's get this started with the big news of the day. Actually, before we get into that, I forgot I have another slide for all of you people. Let's talk about what happened at Oregon, because Oregon had their pro day, or Oregon, and the Bears sent the most people over to the Oregon pro day. And what they had out there, they had 8 total people. They sent the head coach. They sent the offensive coordinator. Bears sent their offensive line coach, their wide receivers coach. We had a lot of people out there. And when you look at who is on Oregon, who are the Ducks that the Bears might be looking for, now immediately people talk about Bo Nix, right? Bears are going to do their due diligence on Bo Nix. They're going to do their due diligence on every quarterback. It's part of the job. But some other people that they would be looking out for too, Jackson Powers Johnson, everybody's favorite center. The Bears could trade back and get him if they want to get obviously the best center in the draft. Also, Troy Franklin, the wide receiver, is also a good speedster that he's really starting to drop. So would he be there at 75? Would they want to trade up and potentially get him? That's why they're going to be looking out for him. Bucky Irvin, the running back, and also someone who not a lot of people are talking about, Brandon Dorlus, is this undersized kind of, yet again, tweener on the defensive line that I feel is most likely going to play that 3 technique. He's going to be a lighter defensive tackle. I feel like the Bears are probably looking at him as well. Even though that they didn't send their defensive line coach, they still have Matt Eberflus that can be out there and look at those players. So, also, Vizo Joe saying, Poles playing Moneyball in free agency. That's right. That is right for sure. And also, no worries, photography. Always anything for the fans out there. Also, cute dog. But let's keep on going and let's talk about. So with that, obviously, they went out to the pro day. But let's talk about the big signing today, shall we? And I also want to ask all of you, what do you think about that? So I just sent out the poll right now. Bears sign Gerald Everett, and we're going to break it down all here. Now, I know that this isn't what us Bears fans were really expecting. We're expecting a defensive lineman, and Ryan Poles goes, hey, how about I give you a running back yesterday with Swift, and now I'm going to give you a tight end with Gerald Everett. Now, it does make sense when you actually look at it. When you put emotions aside, Gerald Everett is a very good tight end. And if we look at the numbers, he ends up getting a 2-year, $12 million deal. And when you look at that compared to the other deals that the other tight ends in the open market got, this is actually a steal of a deal because a lot of them are getting $8 million. Some were getting $10 million. Gerald Everett gets $6 million. This was someone who was starting for the Los Angeles Chargers. Now, we don't have the ins and outs for those that on YouTube, you can see this. We don't have the ins and outs of his deal yet. So we'll just have to see what ends up happening, what ends up shaking it out. But $6 million a year, and I believe it can go up to $14 million. $6 million a year, and it can go up to $7 million a year. Very, very good deal. And we're going to get him when he's 30 and 31. So kind of at that tippy top of the age, but it's not like, or hopefully he doesn't just drop off the side of a cliff. But what can I tell you about Gerald Everett, the tight end? So Gerald Everett, 6'3", so he is a little bit undersized. He's kind of that new mold, the new like Brock Bowers mold, where he's this more undersized tight end. Now, just like Brock Bowers, his kind of claim to this is he's really good in the short yardage situations. He's not going to be stretching the middle of the field at all. And if you look at the stats, PFF charted him at a 91.9 receiving grade behind the line of scrimmage, 93.6 in the short intermediate game from 0 to 9 yards, which is incredible. Then 84.2 in the medium. And the deep range, he only got 2 targets. But when you look at his target share, where he's being targeted, it's really close to the line of scrimmage because that's how he wins. That's how most tight ends win out there. So the behind the line of scrimmage, that's where he saw 20% of his targets, but 65.7% of his targets in that 0 to 9 range. More of a short range tight end. I mean, there's not really many long range tight ends, but that's really where he gets his bread and butter. Short game, breaking tackles, and also in the red zone. Those fantasy, we're going to bring up fantasy football again because I feel like a lot of people know these players from fantasy football. Gerald Everett was a good touchdown machine. And you also look at his stats out there too. His stats have been solid. So PFF charted him as gave him an 85 or 65.6 grade, which is solid. 68.1 overall receiving grade and did not really drop the football. 67 pass block grade. When you look at his run block grade, it's around the 50s. He's not a great run blocking tight end. That's where it's kind of a little bit of an opposite with Cole Kmet. Think of this as an upgrade over Robert Tonyan. That to me is the big piece. Then the year before that, he had a 70.6 grade, and he spent 2 years with the Chargers, and 1 year before that was with the Seahawks, where he had a 63.5 grade. Overall, I like it. He was with the Rams as well before that, so he knows Shane Waldron, and I think that's where you make the connection. He comes in. I really like this signing. I want to kind of see where everyone's grading this. 25% are saying A, 50% are saying B, and 25% are saying C. Yeah, I'm right there where I would say this almost as like I like that this is filling a need. I know that we're disappointed that it's not a bigger name or a defensive lineman, but I really do feel like Gerald Everett fits the need that we need at the tight end position. And also, when we run 2 tight end sets, this is a good weapon to have. And you have him for a pretty cheap deal, all things considered, at $6 million. I think that this is a good deal. I would honestly give it an A- or B+. I really like this as a depth signing, right? Is he going to be a starter? No. But is he going to give you good depth and another target, another weapon on the offense? Yes. So I'm high on this signing. I really enjoy this signing. But let's see what any of you else say out there. And we got B at 55% for Gerald Everett. So I think the overall consensus, good. I see 27% for C. So I like that. But yeah, it was really about holes, as Fabian says, holes fill in the holes. That's really what it was all about that. And then Cliff saying, I don't mind. Everett would still attempt to draft a tight end. Agreed. I definitely agree with that because you have the 2 veterans, you bring in a tight end, and I don't know about all of you guys out there, I really like the depth in this tight end class. I think that there's some very good tight ends you can get later on. And, yet again, it requires us to have later picks. But what we've seen time and time again is Ryan Poles trading back, getting more of those picks. Maybe he trades those 4th rounders back, and then we're able to accumulate more later on, pick up some of these tight ends, and just develop and have more of that young depth to this overall room. But 2 years, Gerald Everett, I don't mind it. But speaking of 2 years, Jonathan Owens, kind of the surprising signing today. Everyone knows him, or I actually didn't really know this. My wife knew this. He is Simone Biles' husband. And what can I tell you about Jonathan Owens? Now, Jonathan Owens, former Packer that the Bears signed for a 2-year deal. And Not much to be said about him. If you look at his PFF grades, he played 927 snaps for the Packers last year, mostly at the free safety role. 434 snaps out of free safety, 322 out of the box, and also 137 out of the slot. And when you look at his grade, 59.6, so below average, not great, but he's there to provide depth. He's not there to be the starter. He is a depth piece. But also, he played at Houston, and when he was over at Houston back in 2022, he played 970 snaps, where he graded at 48.3. So, not great, but yet again, he's here for the depth. We're not going to grade this signing because this is just a pure depth signing. And what's good about this is that we saw this last year, and we said this on the show where we go, if any of these safeties go down, you're not going to have anybody fill in. And Jonathan Owens provides that value. Elijah Hicks, when he came in, I didn't think Elijah Hicks was bad by any stretch of the imagination, but I feel like Jonathan Owens is at least somewhat of a step up. You don't want to see him out there, but he's there to provide some solid depth. Now, personally, I like the idea of drafting a safety. I said this when they signed Byard. I wanted them to draft someone, but yet again, you have only so many draft picks. So to me, this is just filling out the roster, adding the people that they want at key spots. And also, I think this shows what the Bears think of this safety class. This safety class isn't the richest of classes, but the Bears go out and they sign 2 safeties to really hunker down and fill these roles. I think that speaks more volumes to anything else. When you see people get signed a lot, it speaks a lot to the class. And that's where maybe the Bears just don't really like the safety class, don't think that they can get someone with that. So ultimately, signing and filling this out. Cliff saying, Fabian, yeah, Bates, 3 safety signing, depth, or more for Bates. But yeah, I just thought that overall, just kind of filling this out. Jonathan Owens, not too much else to talk about with him. Just some of his stats, like we said, he started 11 games for Green Bay last season and ultimately has only had 1 interception throughout his career. So not great, but 84 tackles last year in 11 starts. But when he was starting for the Houston Texans, 125 tackles. But yet again, plays more of that free safety role, which is what the Bears want in more of this cover too. Because even with like Jaquan Brisker, who is the strong safety, quote unquote, he still plays majority of his snaps deep rather than in the box. So provides some solid depth out there indeed. So nothing else really that I can say about Jonathan Owens, but let's look at some cap space, shall we? So what are the updated cap numbers for the Chicago Bears? Well, we don't have anything absolutely updated as of right now because Kevin Byard's deal is still not disclosed to us. We still don't know the ins and outs of that deal. And we also don't know the ins and outs of the other deals that we were talking about because we don't know what the yearly cash is for each one, but also with Jonathan Owens is just a 2-year deal, but we don't know the actual dollars that go into it. So to me, I'm hoping that it's cheap because Simone Biles said that she loves Chicago, and I think that she might even live in Chicago. Someone fact check me on that because I think she does. But overall, when I just did the math, I subtracted exactly $7.5 million for Byard's deal and exactly $6 million for Everett's deal from the remaining that they had, and it was around $45 million that they still have out there. Now you do factor into with draft picks, you have to subtract $15 million to that. Also, if they get more draft picks, it's not going to make the salary cap crazy, but then also you want to try and keep around that $5 to $10 million during the season so that if anyone goes down, you can then add someone then, or maybe they want to sign someone after the NFL draft. Just things to look out for there. And then, Cliff, same thing. Get that $5 to $10 million that are out there that you want to kind of keep out there. But also Jay Sanders saying it might be $2 million for Owens. I haven't seen it yet. So if that is what it is, that could be it. And that seems like that seems like what they would probably give a veteran for a multi-year deal. So I didn't see the numbers immediately when it came out. So that might be it then. But that seems reasonable. It seems like it would be around that. So basically the Bears still have a crap ton of cap space that they can use. And now we know, we might have all seen that Daniil Hunter was signed, that a lot of these other big name free agents have already been off the board. So with this new cap, what does that mean? And we'll be breaking this down because I have a picture of Khalil Mack. Do I think the Bears would do it? No. But I'm actually because literally I was just thinking to myself, I'm like, how can the Bears just spend money? If they wanted to spend money, where would this go? And something that came to mind was I just threw Khalil Mack out there, but I'm curious about the Chargers. Would the Bears actually want to get one of these Chargers? Let me know down in the comments if you're watching on YouTube. Would you want Joey Bosa? Would you want Khalil Mack? Would you want Mike Williams? Would you want Keenan Allen? Would you want any of those four players? Yes, no. Because it's like if the Bears want to spend money, that's a good way to spend money. But at the same time, I don't know. I don't like the idea of if you have to trade. I don't want to trade more draft picks, but I wanted to at least throw these four people out there because I was literally like, how can the Bears spend money? And I'm like, this is the best way. This is the best way at all. But yeah, to me, I look at it and I'm like, if you're desperate for a wide receiver and they get rid of one of them, yeah. Or if you can trade like a, next year 6 for Mike Williams, maybe. But you're talking about taking on around $20 million in cap space with any of these players. I just don't think that it's really out there. So I wanted to at least throw it out there, see what the chat has to say, just to see what's out there. So let's see. We got yes. Jay Sanders likes all of them. Bear down, Alan. What is going on? Broski, welcome to the chat, saying no for none of these. And then Cliff saying yes at the right price. Yes, I definitely agree with that because that's where, would you trade? No, we don't have a lot of draft capital. So if we can wait for them to maybe release one of these players, and then do you bring them in on like a 1-year deal? 1 year, prove it, something like that. That might be a little bit higher in cash, and then you're able to make some money. Then you're able to get a good veteran out there because you do have the cap space. But also keep in mind too, and I said this last show, but I want to just reiterate it because I see more people talking about that they have to spend money. They really don't. There's different elements that you do have to spend money on. But remember, this cap does roll over. The cap space does roll over. I mean, if the Bears walk in with $30 million in cap space, that would be a little bit nuts. You might want to spend a little bit more. But I still feel like this makes sense that Ryan Poles overall is just trying to be methodical with his money and not spend big. It's not fun, but that's what's going on. So, yeah, but then we got some yeses. Julian, what's going on? Saying no, none of those players, all overpaid. And yeah, Broski saying overpaying for all farts. No, thanks. But I do agree with Joe. Mack is still a beast. Mack is looking good. Joey Bosa has a million injuries. That's the biggest no from me, dog, is from Bosa, just because I think that was, he's a little crazy. So let's see. John saying Bears going to be on Hard Knocks with QB battlefields versus Caleb, divided locker room and terrible team chemistry. Are they officially? Because I could totally see them. I know that the Bears are one of the teams that needs to be on that. And I know that their time is coming up. I think it's definitely going to be this year because all the storylines going into it, where they keep it, I think that's definitely what's going to end up happening. But let's carry on, shall we? So we talked about, and actually, speaking of the quarterback saga, I want to kind of play this sound because with the quarterback saga, we had Ian Rapaport talk about this. And the field side, right? And we're going to try and play both sides. And I said this before, anytime that we get some legit news, we're going to talk about it. And Ian Rapaport made a lot of headlines when it came to Bears Twitter. And what he said was that the Bears have not tried to shop Justin Fields. So then that goes crazy on Twitter. Everybody's tweeting that out. And then Schefter comes on and says, well, no, it's because he just really doesn't have a market. And then Rapaport goes back on and he said this. I'm going to play the audio. I'm not going to show the video, though, because YouTube demonetizes me. So I'm just going to play the audio and we shall see Let me just get this all set up real quick, and let's hear what Ian Rapaport had to say about Justin Fields.
Yeah, so here's where what the Bears are doing right now, and I know a lot of talk has been about Justin Fields. This is not a Justin Fields discussion. This is a Caleb Williams #1 overall pick discussion. What the Chicago Bears are committed to doing, and really what they have been committed to doing the entire time, is fully evaluating the quarterbacks who they could take at #1, including Caleb Williams. They were at the Combine. They met with him there. They're going to be in full force at Caleb Williams' Pro Day a week from tomorrow. They're going to have him to the facility to visit with him. They're going to do the full evaluation. And at the point when they are then settled on taking Caleb Williams #1, which we expect, but we don't know for sure because this is too important a decision to just go, yeah, okay, we'll take this guy, we'll trade the other guy. Until all that, they're going to do the full evaluation. When they settle on a quarterback that they are taking #1, and I do expect them to take a quarterback at #1, at that point they will then move to say, where are we going to trade Justin Fields? Might this happen leading up to the draft? Sure, it could. History has shown these trades happen a lot of times leading up, like right before the draft, or sometimes during the draft. Josh Rosen got traded literally during the draft when I believe the Cardinals were on the clock in the second round, if I remember correctly. So that's sort of the timeline for these things, but just because they're not actively shopping him doesn't really mean anything as it pertains to Justin Fields.
All right, and you heard that there. I hope that came through correctly. I don't really have all the connections out there. It was also weird to just literally sit there and just stare at you guys for a little bit, but heard that there, right? Rapaport was saying just because they're not shopping Fields does not mean that they're going to keep him. It just means that they're just simply not shopping him. They have to go through their due diligence. They have to go through the medicals on Caleb Williams, which means we're going to probably keep on talking about this and have the QB saga going on for maybe another week. So let's just make sure that that we don't lose any more hairs or grow any more grays because of this. But that's going to be the biggest interesting that it's a very interesting piece with that. So let me know what you all think down below. But I think this ultimately just boils down to Ryan Poles wants to make sure everything is okay with Caleb Williams. He wants to make sure everything's fine. And if Rapaport's correct that the Bears have not been trying to shop Justin Fields, it at least makes a little bit more sense. But when you see other people picking up quarterbacks, it doesn't bode well. There's a lot of people out there that are just picking up quarterbacks left and right. And the latest rumors, the biggest connection is with the Seahawks. So that is where we need to be looking out for just to see if anything happens out there. But let's see. But yeah, Danielle Hunter left. And yeah, it sounds like Danielle Hunter's from Texas. He's actually from Houston. So that's a big reason why he wanted to move down there. Joe saying, I was convinced Poles was going to draft Caleb, but now with the underwhelming free agents, I think Poles might trade first pick to still fill the holes and draft Caleb. Broski saying, that's BS, Brad. What? Come on, Broski. Poles playing damage control because unlike the Fields cultist, the rest of the league views him as a backup or gimmick player. I think we are seeing what they do view Justin Fields, because I will say this. If the NFL did view Justin Fields as a starter, they would give a package to get Justin Fields, period. I feel that is certain, because if they felt that confident with him and if he was going to be on the market, I feel like they would just instantly say, I don't care. I'll give you a second. if I'm the Steelers, I'll give you a first, because we have Russell Wilson, doing sit-ups and doing lunges on the airplane for $1 million. I'd rather take Justin Fields for a little bit more, right? I think that's something that's potentially going on. And also, too, I saw a lot of comps to what's going on with Lamar Jackson, or like what happened last year. I think that there's a big difference with that, because when Lamar Jackson was franchise tagged and they talked about that and it was non-exclusive, what it really felt like was they wanted other teams to negotiate the contract for Lamar Jackson so that they could just basically say, yep, that's your worth. We don't have to do the negotiations. We'll take that contract and we'll keep you. Right? I felt like that was more of what they were trying to do with that. But John's saying also, Bears 5th in cap space, leave with 5 rental players. Green Bay 22nd in cap space, leaving free agency with best safety and running back in the market, that's not acceptable. I think because no big names want to play for Flus, that could be it. So actually, I want to ask all of you, how much confidence do you have in Ryan Poles? Let me know down below, because I'm kind of curious. Also, Ron, what is good, my friend? Bear down to you as well. So also, Cliff, thank you for the countdown. 43 more days until the draft. And then also, yeah, what Broski was saying too, rumors are also Raiders are still interested as well. And Eagles potentially for a day 3 pick. But yeah, we'll see. We'll see what ends up going on. But I think that ultimately we're going to have to wait till the Bears truly go into and really see what Caleb Williams is and go through his medicals and make sure everything's good. So that ultimately is the biggest piece. So yeah. And then Jay Sanders, I disagree. Maybe teams think the Bears aren't trading Justin and moved on. Maybe, right? Like maybe Poles did the I don't know what I'm doing a little too well. But also, yeah, Martell, this is why people are delusional. Stats mean nothing. Tapes mean something. It does. And I think that's where it's tough. Because to me, when I watch Justin Fields tape is the most frustrating thing to watch. It is the most frustratingly awesome thing to watch because you see him literally not throw it to a wide open receiver. And then you see him with crazy athleticism make a play that no one else can make. And I think that's the hard part with Fields is, like he just has these unbelievable plays and you see the talent, but then I see it and you go, why aren't you throwing it to people? And actually, speaking of why aren't you throwing it to people, this guy, Darnell Mooney. Darnell Mooney signs a 3-year, $39 million deal, not to the Kansas City Chiefs like I thought, ends up going with the Atlanta Falcons, joining Kirk Cousins. And you know what? Like I've said before, Darnell Mooney has been one of my favorite players. I absolutely loved him in the draft process. He was one of my guys when he was coming out of the draft, and I loved it when they signed him and just has been one of my favorite players. And it's sad to see him ultimately leave, but I hope that he can just show who he is, right? And he's able to play that number 2 role next to Drake London. And I think ultimately he's going to do well. Rejoins Ryan Pace over at Atlanta, signs a big deal for the same as Gabe Davis. But also, too, if we look over at Gabe Davis also, rumor has it that the Bears were in on Gabe Davis, too. So Gabe Davis, unfortunately, not going to be a Chicago Bear, but got the same deal as the 3 years, $13 million a year deals. But when we look at the free agents, with the free agent wide receiver class, not a lot of people have been taken off. Calvin Ridley supposedly is going to be with the Jags or with the Patriots. That's kind of the big rumor. But we still have Hollywood Brown, if you want a speedster that has not great hands. But speedster can take the top off of a defense. And we know Shane Waldron likes speed. He likes having these fast wide receivers like a Tyler Lockett and a DK Metcalf that he can then kind of position and, get open and cause some mismatches. Do I think that they're going to go with them? Probably not. But, the point that I made there makes sense. But I just don't think that the Bears would want to go with the Hollywood Brown. But you also look to Odell Beckham. You see Curtis Samuel, Tyler Boyd. It's all the same people that we've talked about before. But let's keep on going through with some of the other players out there as well. We also have the mids. So Michael Thomas, DJ Chark, Josh Reynolds, KJ Osborne. The only person, and really none of these guys have gotten signed. It's the same show as we did yesterday. Because in the bargain bins, still Cedric Wilson, Braxton Berrios, Mac Hollins, all those players still available. So I think that it's going to stay the same. And I think a big reason for this is you have to look at the market. There wasn't a good running back. A lot of people don't think that this is a good running back crop coming out in free agency. So what did we see? We saw the running backs go immediately. We saw basically all the top running backs are gone because Derrick Henry just signed for $8 million. All those running backs are gone. Then you look at the second tier. Majority of those are all gone. Gus Edwards, Zach Moss, Devin Singletary, all them gone. Wide receivers still open. This is good wide receiver class with some pretty decent depth. And I think when you see the prices of wide receivers and the depth, That's why you're not seeing them kind of fly off the shelves. So maybe we start to see some of them tomorrow leave and start signing with some of these teams. So that's something that I just really want to see out there from the wide receiver group. But now I want to check the chat. I want to see what we think of Mr. Ryan Poles, the real anti-up. A lot of confidence in Mr. P. Then also Cliff saying, in Poles we trust. And then Joe, I will add that to my little question board. So what is the best thing to do at the actually, I can answer that pretty quick. I like the Bears trading down. I think that because of the lack of picks, and I think because there's still Jackson Powers Johnson, I think that Johnny Newton is going to be dropping out of Illinois. So I think you can get some good defensive linemen. I think trading down would be the best bet just to kind of accumulate some draft capital. And I think that that you're not going to see one of the top wide receivers at 9. But if anyone, I think the only wide receiver that might be available to them at 9, this might be a bold take, but I'll describe myself. I think Malik Neighbors might be the one that actually drops because the NFL loves size. They love size. They see a number 1 wide receiver like Rome Odunze, his size, and go, I want that guy. I want that guy that runs fast and he's big and he's tall. He can do more than Malik Neighbors. So I think if anything, Neighbors would be the one that most likely drops. But if none of the wide receivers drop, I think ultimately they'll trade back and try and get some draft capital and maybe trade back to a QB needy team that might want to just kind of hop up to then get their guy. Maybe it is JJ McCarthy or someone like that. And then Alan saying good confidence. I think free agency has been productive. Jay Sanders polls. MO is to trade back. Yeah, he's definitely trading back. Yeah, agreed. And then Broski. Oh yeah, talking about Fields with any of that. All right. I think I'll share this stat with all of you too, just because Broski said this with the quarterback throwing. I looked back at this, and I didn't tweet this out because I would be attacked on Twitter for this. So anyone else can take credit for this and tweet it out. I don't care. But if you look back at the past 40 years, and you go all the way back to when the Bears won the Super Bowl, there's been 24 quarterbacks that have been drafted number 1 overall. And 23 of them have thrown for more passing yards than Justin Fields has in one season. And because Justin Fields threw for 2,565 yards. And in their first 3 seasons, a key thing, in the first 3 seasons of all number 1 picks in the past 40 years, 23 of them have thrown for more passing yards in one season than Justin Fields has. And even Bryce Young, even as much as we dog on Bryce Young, he threw for more passing yards. And I just want to say you win while passing, right? And that's that. I saw that and I was like looking through, I'm like, oh my God, this is not good, right? And I think that's the big thing. It is a stat, and I know that people are going to say he runs the football, but I just want to throw that out there. The only one that didn't was Jamarcus Russell. And Jamarcus Russell, I think, was like 128 yards away. So yeah, so that's where we need a franchise quarterback. I just am sick of bad passing play. That's my biggest thing. I see a lot of people really liking Ryan Poles. Yeah. And I think that's the biggest thing. So yeah. So I think ultimately then yeah, a lot of people are like what's going on. And a lot of people also want Ridley, but yeah, Ridley signing with the Jags, most likely. We'll have to see. And yeah, not a lot of people like Brown. Brown drops a lot of stuff. Also, Philip, what is good, my friend? Thank you so much for the kind words out there. And yeah, a lot of people like Curtis Samuel and yeah, Michael Thomas. I see Michael Thomas out there. Lots and lots of stuff out there. So yeah, was that for that? Yeah, so let's see. Yeah, in polls we trust, we got a lot of that. Yeah, so to me, I'm a trade down. I'm a trade down type of guy for with Ryan. What I think Ryan Poles is going to do. I think ultimately that's what he's going to ultimately do. So yeah. Also, Joe, yeah, right on. I know I'm going to get attacked. I know I'm going to get attacked. I've said this on shows. Anytime that I have either Caleb Williams or if I talk about Caleb Williams or if I talk about Justin Fields, that video without fail is going to get the most dislikes. I have never gotten more dislikes until this whole like quarterback fiasco, because it's just dividing. And I mean, ultimately, we're all Bears fans. I don't care. I just want to win games, and whoever's quarterback, I'm gonna root for. Like, right? We're all Bears fans here, and I think ultimately that's what it boils down to. And I get why, like, you know, I honestly understand why people love Justin Fields. People were getting offended when we had Mitch Trubisky, and Mitch Trubisky couldn't even throw it past his first read. And that's just because, like, we love our players. In Chicago, we love our players. We are fanatics. We are obsessed with our sports teams. We are obsessed with the Chicago Bears. That's why there's 250 people watching, over 250 people watching this right now, and we can listen to the same Justin Fields conversation over and over again. We love our Chicago Bears. So that's where I'm excited for this to be done, but it's also going to be an absolutely wild ride. But all I hope for is that we can win some playoff games. That's what I got to say. That's my little soapbox tangent for all of y'all right now. But yeah, I just want to win. I just want to win. But let's talk about some defensive ends, shall we? So let's talk about this. So, and also, yeah, I see Orlando saying, yeah, Fields hasn't played a full season. He misses games he doesn't. And that's the hard part, right? Like when you're a running quarterback, man, you get smacked. And that also in college, that was the same thing too. And I think like what you see is a lot of college tendencies come over to the NFL. You see that how Justin Fields did not throw it over the middle a lot. Same thing in the NFL, just hasn't been able to do that. And he's got banged up. He's a big guy. Like I think they talk about this where just because you're small doesn't mean you're injury prone. It means, are you going to take big hits? Like I always remember Kevin White. Every time Kevin White had the ball, you were like, just get down, Kevin. Just get down, Kevin. And he was always like standing up, like trying to fight for yards, and just would get pelted and just get absolutely destroyed. And man, it was crazy. So yeah, for sure. But yeah, so let's keep going on. Centers, nothing's really changed. Connor Williams is still available. I don't expect him to be signed immediately. I think it's going to wait some time, but you still have your other kind of like other centers, consolation prizes with Brian Allen, Evan Brown, Coleman, Shelton. And that's where I still feel like, would they actually draft someone and just kind of have Ryan Bates as that backup offensive lineman, that random O lineman that they want to have out there? So we'll just see what ultimately happens. I'm not holding my breath at the center position, but let's talk about defensive ends. And this is painful because we see the high-priced defensive ends, and they're all gone except for Chase Young. And Chase Young is out on visits with other teams. Most likely, my guess is going to be signing with those. And something that we have not talked about on this show was the Chase Young knee. I mean, we talked about how it affects his play. And there was a rumor that the Bears didn't want Chase Young when they were trading because of that knee. And it makes sense. Bears are sticklers when it comes to those injuries, which I'm fine with because you want to be on the field. We just talked about that with Justin Fields. He needs to be on the field. But Chase Young is the only kind of high-priced free agent still on the board. Then we go to the next layer, Jadeveon Clowney. As is tradition, he is still an open free agent. $9 million average is what we're looking at. But someone who just got signed was Josh Uche. So now for only $3 million to go back with the Patriots. So really when you're looking at these defensive ends, not a lot out there. Calais Campbell, Mike Dana. But the Bears are going to be speaking with DJ Wonnum, which I said last show, I do not want him. And I've joked about this, saying he is a total Chicago Bear. He's what I could see Matt Eberflus liking, where he's just kind of this high motor, takes snaps, but he's also kind of a good run stuffer. But this is the reason why I don't like him. I want him to win. I want him to beat the guy in front of him. That's my biggest criteria. And DJ Wonnum just doesn't really do that. And you look throughout his career, and I just kind of grabbed some of the stats. Last year was his best pass rush win percentage at 8.2%, which is his best. Remind you that. Because then the year before that, 7.8, year before that, 7.1, year before that, 6.6. Now, if you want some context, DeMarcus Walker was not none of us would say DeMarcus Walker is an absolute beast when it comes to rushing the passer, right? None of us would say that. I hope none of us would say that. Like, he's a solid player, but he's not a beast when it comes to rushing the passer. His pass rush win rate was 10.8. So just keep that into perspective when you see his best pass rush win rate, DJ Wonnum's, was 8.2. You know, yet again, these are just stats, but this also kind of confirms what I see on tape. But then also, just for perspective, Rasheem Green, who was not good, 7% pass rush win rate, which is more around the range of DJ Wonnum. So that's where I'm not a big DJ Wonnum fan. If they get him, I just hope that it's for a cheap deal. Maybe it's a 1-year deal, something like that. If he's just a depth player and you just kind of add him for a small rate and he just kicks Demarcus Robinson off, I'm fine with it, right? I'll be fine with it. But if it's for like a large sum of money, I'm not a big fan of that. I'm not a big fan of DJ Wonnum. We've seen him so many times with the Vikings, and I think also most of his sacks come against the Chicago Bears as well, and that's because we're looking at Danielle Hunter on the other side. So that's my biggest piece. Let's see what you all have to say too. Let's see. I'm seeing some Chase Youngs out there, and Chase Young is interesting. So, Clowney, I am a big Clowney fan. I know some people do not like Clowney. I was on the Clowney train all as like the over Yannick Ngakoue last year, and Clowney got a lot of sacks. So I like Clowney. But yeah, I agree. I see Orlando saying we don't want him. Yeah, exactly. Most of his sacks were against us. We don't want that. And then Broski calling him a bum. Yeah, I am not. DJ Wonnum, I mean, he just, like, the best thing about him is that he eats up snaps. That's not good. And also I saw every year he's been a negative wins above replacement player. I don't like that. I would rather them be positive wins above replacement. Yet again, just stats. But when the stats match the film, then you can use the stats. So let's talk a little bit about defensive tackles, because I think there's a little bit more hope. And hey, I know we talked about this earlier on in the show, and a lot of people weren't with us at that time. Maybe one of the defensive ends get cut from the Chargers, like a Khalil Mack, like a Joey Bosa. I kind of would stay away from Bosa just because of all those injuries, but Khalil Mack, maybe, if he ends up getting cut. So we'll have to see. But let's talk about some D tackles, because the defensive tackle market isn't as drained, I would say. Still drained, but not as drained. DJ Reader is still out there. We talked about this yesterday. There were some rumors that the Bears might be interested in DJ Reader. Sheldon Rankins, also a pretty darn good three technique specialist, if you will. And then Quentin Jefferson, the pass rush three technique guy. But Daquan Jones got signed. Ashawn Robinson got signed. Von Kinlaw got signed. Shelby Harris got signed. So a lot of those veterans that I was hoping that the Bears could maybe sign for like a 1-year type of a deal that are just good players end up being taken away. Another person to be on the lookout for, though, is Poona Ford. Maybe the Bears might want to take a stab at him. I still feel like they might want to take just another defensive tackle to start filling out that a little bit more. Unless they like Byron Murphy out of Texas at that 9 spot, which honestly could be a gigantic wild card for the Bears. Not a lot of people have that out there. So for sure. So that's a lot of the people that are out there on the open market for the Chicago Bears. Thank you all for tuning in again as we break down everything that you need to know about free agency. And hopefully tomorrow we can start talking about some bigger names. Like I said, I like the Gerald Everett signing. I think Jonathan Owens is just more of a depth type of a piece. But ultimately, I think that what they're trying to build is they're trying to just build out this roster. We see this overall with Ryan Poles. This is what he likes to do in free agency. He doesn't really like to take the splash unless it was at the linebacker position for Tremaine Edmonds. So we'll see if he ends up doing anything larger, maybe as large as a DJ Reader tomorrow. But you better believe that we're going to have you covered. So if you haven't already, make sure to hit the like button, subscribe. It helps out the channel absolutely tremendously. Thank you all so much. I appreciate all the support throughout this. And with that, Unbearable Sports Podcast, we are out.
Yeah, she's got some nice long hair and you know that